some more than others, as long as we can be exposed to the encouragement and the support to develop that creativity and the tools. And as long as we're brave enough to keep pursuing the things that interest us and we're not hindered or talk ourselves out of doing something because it might seem quote unquote silly or non-productive.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Most Loved Technology Leadership Podcast. My name is Christian Galvin. I'm a cybersecurity expert, curious about business and technology. In this episode, I'll interview Lawren Epstein, an innovative leader with 10 plus years of experience and a patent owner. This episode will discuss on how to cultivate creativity for anyone in any field of expertise. Sit back and enjoy the show. I'm excited to host a good friend of mine today, Lawren Epstein. She's a creative leader in product design and development with over 18 years of experience in product design and development, mechanical engineering, and life sciences. She studied at Louisiana State University for her bachelor's, where she earned a degree in clinical laboratory science. She also studied product design and is currently pursuing her master's at Brown University for technology leadership. She's previously founded an organization called Buy Local Artists. She holds a patent for a disposable cover for handheld devices. She's worked for well-known companies such as Stanford University Hospital, 3M, and is currently the co-founder of Surface Pure Films. She received 5 awards for technical excellence and innovation at 3M. Thank you so much for joining the show today, Lawren, and I'm super excited to host you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm delighted and honored. So let's get started.
Awesome. Well, could we get started with where did your journey begin and how did you get started? Because innovation is not for everyone, and creativity is something that we need in order to be successful in our careers, no matter what industry we're in. So could you tell us how you got started in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I got my degree from LSU in clinical lab science, and I started in that career trajectory just thinking that maybe I would want to go to medical school, but I started in there and I had a lot of fun. I even traveled with my work and worked at Stanford for a little while, and I traveled throughout the US. And so I got to learn about different types of hospital systems and work environments. And ultimately I got a little bit bored. And so that's when I went back to school and studied design. And that was actually when I realized that I was creative. I think we're all creative. And I think like you said, it's essential to have creativity in an organization for productivity, for revenue, to just bring value to our end users. And that was where I realized that I was creative. And so in school, while I was studying design, I started working on illustrations and product design, product development there, and really loved illustrations. And so that's what kind of got me into digital design and working with companies for user experience and visual design and UI. So having that education was really my foothold into product development at 3M. And so I met some amazing people at 3M. It's a wonderful company and I had a lot of fun there. We made a lot of great things and I was accepted for and welcomed into some product development teams because I was creative. And after 3M, I took a little time off for family purposes. And then the pandemic rolled around. So I continued my product development on my own and was working on a disposable cover for handheld devices to prevent disease transmission from one user to the next. And then I met you when we started studying together at Brown. And now I'm working on a number of really fun projects for user experience, brand design, visual design, even product design. I've been advising a RISD Brown student for product development. So that's been a lot of fun. And I think probably one of my favorite projects that I'm working on right now is AI-powered enterprise software to help sales professionals and companies increase revenue. So it's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of experience with user experience design, user interface design, kind of tapping into the new terms, customer experience. And the AI-powered is really fun because it's a new approach to designing an interface, right? Because it's an interface that's going to always receive information constantly. And so you're not creating a stagnant web page or a 2D design or just illustrating or just a product. It's something that's going to continue to evolve as the minutes roll on, and designing a platform that's going to support that. And I'm really going to add value for the end user. So that's been my favorite.
That's awesome. And you speaking about that, actually, I have a couple of questions before we dive into the current projects that you're currently working on. So you went from being a scientist to being an inventor. Can you tell me what it was like when you made the jump from working in a laboratory to creating your own company and getting started on that? Because that's a big jump and many people have ideas, yet they're not sure they should pursue it. So what was the thinking behind that?
I think there wasn't any thinking. I just saw a need and I just moved towards it. So the need that I saw when I developed the company buylocalartists.com as an e-commerce global marketplace, and I just saw a need. I knew that I wanted to do something creative and I wanted to work from home and I wanted to be paid to create things from the comfort of my own home where I felt the most creative, where I felt the most productive. I thought, well, probably other people also want to do the same thing. And so let's just make a website that would enable artists around the world to make things from their house and to put them on this marketplace and to make their own page, like their own profile page, and then they could sell it. And then they could just get paid for doing things that they love to do. And so that was the drive behind that, because I wanted to do it for myself. And I thought other people probably want to do the same thing. And it was successful. It ultimately grew to cover about 24 different countries around the world. So there were artists selling all kinds of wonderful things, wall-size murals. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. And ultimately, I had to let it go. I was doing pretty well at 3M and just kind of ran out of resources, time and money. And I didn't have enough hands, enough hours in the day to keep both going.
You're an artist and you draw amazingly. I've seen some of your work. When we were setting, you showed me some pictures. What was the feeling of pursuing something that you're very passionate about and for it to grow and be successful? You mentioned expanding to 24 countries. Artists commonly want to branch out and they want to share their work globally. That's the need. And you went ahead and did that. So how does it feel when you look back on that company and the fact that it was quite successful? Do you feel like a sense of satisfaction that has allowed you to be more risk averse in your future choices?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Looking back, that's why we create product, right? Whether it's a digital product or a physical product, we create because we want to add value and we want to keep individuals. We want to make it human, and we want to enable people to do what they love to do. And whether it's vacation or draw or make their day easier, we want to help them in some way to add value and to add to the joy in their life. So I think being risk adverse, maybe it's a character flaw. I'm not very risk averse. I just kind of go for it. And I don't really know if that's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, but I tend to think the sky isn't the limit. And if you want to do something, you should just do it. And if you hit a roadblock, well, you've learned from that and you go to the next thing. So the lesson is just to stay productive and pursue your interests. If you think that what your idea is, it can add value, and you don't create it, well, I think you're doing a disservice, right?
I totally agree with you there. And pivoting back a bit to what you mentioned on how your career got started, you're currently advising students at the Rhode Island School of Design. Could you share more about how that's going?
That was really very organic. So they reached out to me and just kind of looking for guidance and advice. And it's really a lot of fun being able to provide my learnings throughout the years, whether it's material science or gathering customer insights. A lot of the times graduate students, they're still very early on in their career. They have a dream, they have an idea, but they get stuck. They think it's too big. And a lot of times they are. And who cares? Just make it anyway and see how far you can go. You never know. But it's a lot of fun. And I would love to keep doing that well into my career. And we learn from them. And I've learned from these students.
Awesome. Could you explain the project that you mentioned before for the AI powered project that you're currently advising them on?
So that's the one actually I'm working on. So I'm leading the design for that one. So that's my project with a few other team members. Right now, we're kind of in stealth mode until we can get the patents out and some NDAs underway. I can't really say a whole lot because we're still knee deep, but we're hoping to get a product out early next year. So I'm leading the design for that. But again, it's a wonderful team. Each of us have expertise in different areas, and I couldn't have asked for a better team. So I'm really excited for that. So stay tuned.
Perfect. And I do have a question. I wrote it down as I was planning for this conversation. Do you believe that we're creative from childhood, or is that something that we develop over the years? And could you give some experiences that you've seen throughout your life and what you think about that question?
Great question. I think there's probably going to be a lot of different opinions, but my personal opinion is that we're all creative. I think that some more than others, as long as we can be exposed to the encouragement and the support to develop that creativity and the tools. And as long as we're brave enough to keep pursuing the things that interest us and we're not hindered or kind of talk ourselves out of doing something because it might seem quote unquote silly or non-productive. But so to answer your question, I think we're all innately creative, like I said, but just probably some more than others. I have two little girls that are amazingly creative. They're creative in their language and in dancing and acting and painting and sculpting. And I have a 4-year-old that loves to build, and she can build these Legos for 8 and 10-year-olds, and she can build these sculptures. And it's really wonderful to see, even at such an early age. So I give her the tools and I support her. And I think that naturally everything she does is going to be great. And I think as long as we're supporting others that want to develop that creativity, when I started to illustrate, I was really bad at it. I was really bad. I mean, I still have my drawings. I'm not going to show them to anybody, but I'm just going to have them there just so I can see how far I've come. And now I draw and I illustrate. And my 6-year-old says, "Mommy, you're such a good artist." And I'm like, "Well, I've had a really long time to learn." So you keep it up, and you're going to be even better.
And was that something that your family and friends knew about while you were starting your sketches and getting started in your illustrations? Or was it something that you kind of kept to yourself initially?
I kept it to myself. No one encouraged me to do it. I don't come from a family of artists or creatives, a lot of hard workers. And so that was kind of instilled in me to work hard to get to where you need to go. My mom's always supported me and encouraging me to love what I do. She doesn't care what it is, just as long as I love what I'm doing. It was a self-exploratory journey for me. And whenever I was in the lab, I did have one individual who was very supportive, and she kind of pushed me into design school. I would carry around magazines that I would barely even read them. I would just buy them because I liked the typography and the photography in there. And I would look at that and feel good about my day because I was surrounding myself with things that I loved. And so she said, "You should go work for this company and you're carrying these magazines around like they're your Bible." I'm like, maybe she's right. Maybe I should pursue something. So I started looking at art schools and things. So this one individual was key in helping me pursue my creative talents.
And when you're pursuing your creative talents, how does that translate from when you're doing it by yourself in an isolated way, where you're starting your illustrations and then you go to school and then you learn more about the methodology and then you go to a company? How do you bring that creativity to an organization, and how do you inspire that for others? Is there anything that you can share from your experience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually invited to join the product development team at 3M. So I started as a quality engineer. And as soon as a few individuals heard that I had some design experience and was creative, as well as understood the science behind the products, I quickly got pulled into the product development team. So I didn't know that creativity was going to be welcome. I actually tried to hide it because I thought, well, this is a corporation. They're not going to want me to explore my creative juices here, So as soon as they heard that I was creative and could design product and industrial design and could illustrate ideas and kind of help drive these brainstorming sessions into something different, it was valued. And I appreciate that they valued that. And even within our cohort at Brown, I'm just getting invited into several different projects for UX and UI design and product design. And it's really needed. It's needed in organizations. It's needed In startups, I'm really happy about it that I have a skill that I've allowed myself to develop that is high demand. And so when you think about innovation, that's all it is, right? It's creativity. It's pulling in ideas from the technical side, from what you've learned about sales, what you've learned about your end user and customers. And it's pulling in all of that. And it's creative problem solving. Product managers do it every day, right? And that's what innovation is. That's why design thinking has become so popular, and that co-collaboration, that co-creation with the end user and with your other counterparts within your organization is really important to drive value. So design thinking has helped bring that designer's toolkit into innovation and product development and engineering, and has in turn made a lot of the other members of the organizations appreciate the designers more because of their mindset. So it's a positive loop.
That's amazing. And how do you cultivate that creativity? Because when you're working with different engineers, they might be used to a different cadence, such as Jira sprint, 2-week periods when they're delivering a product. But in order to harness that creativity, is there a way that we should think about collaborating with the designers? And is it, hey, let's give them the requirements and let them work until they come up with an idea that they feel would be valuable to the product? Or how do we go about collaborating with designers?
Great question. So co-create. So don't give the problem to them and have them come up with solutions. Do it together. Spend more of your time focusing on the end user and what the real problem is, and then move into your ideation phases together. So if you can ask questions and hone in on, okay, if the end user is having a problem, why are they having a problem? Where are they having that problem? And kind of dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then really you've solved the core issue for the end user and not just a symptom of the real problem together. And when you have these collaborations, creative collaborations, you can start having conversations, watch the end user together, talk about, see where they fumble on when they're using a product or trying to use a service, or what are the issues? Because a lot of the times the customers aren't going to tell you what the problem is. But most of the time, when you really take the time to be with the other engineers and sales teams and product managers and designers, and you get everyone together and you observe the end user using the product or the service, you're going to identify the latent needs together. If you spend 90% of your time defining the problem, you're better off than as if you spent 5% of your time defining the problem and 95% of your time creating a product. You might have created the wrong product.
That's great. Thank you for that response. And you mentioned UX design and creation of websites. I don't have too much experience in that. So could you explain some components that come with UX design? The only things I've seen so far when I was creating my website, I wasn't aware that there was different typography and different fonts and different things that are easy on the eye for the end user. So that really opened my eyes, and there's a lot more. This is a whole different world that I didn't know existed.
So that's the really fun part, the visual design. It's really fun in creating a cohesive representation of your brand, of your business, of your product. That's really fun. Yeah, different typographies really stand out in different industries. And I do want to back up a little bit and say that UX is not just the website or a business card or marketing information. So UX is the user experience, or CX now is the customer experience. It's every single thing that the customer is going to touch, feel, interact with. If you have a physical product, it's going to be the packaging, the logos, the brand information, the aesthetics, the actual product, the customer service that they talk to if they have an issue with the product, or if they order the product online, how easy was it for them to check out, and how easy was it for them to gain information on your website about the product. And the customer experience, the CX and the UX is going to be all encompassing. UX tends to drive more towards the customer experiences for all. And then popularly, the UX can be tied to the digital design, so the web design. But the UI is really like what you were talking about, how you're designing the website and any kind of marketing information. I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of went on a rant, but
No, I think that was a great overview of the different components. For the professionals who are not in the creative space, they might just lump all those different components together and not really understand it. And I think having that overview helps us appreciate all the different work that goes behind it. You mentioned marketing a couple of times already. When it comes to product management and working with the various engineers, is marketing included at the beginning of the process or is that towards the end? Because marketing does have a sense of bringing that creativity and aligning all the business objectives in a way that's creative and nice for the customers and internal stakeholders.
So if you're a product manager, marketing will be included right away. They're a key stakeholder, marketing, sales, executives, they're going to be included right away. From an engineering or designer standpoint, when you're innovating and ideating, it would be great to include the marketers in because they're probably going to have a lot of market insights, customer insights. And so I think that they should be involved right away. When you're kind of in the lab and you're an engineer or product development specialist, you're just kind of creating until you can create and create. I have a great friend. He's a chemist and he used to be with 3M and he would just kind of create and create and create sticky things, create. So that's a wonderful thing about organizations like 3M. You're just given the freedom to, buy an extruder and make whatever you need. And then the application engineers will kind of get ideas and marry the marketing, the customer insights with these solutions and think, how can we use that? How can we apply that to something that's useful and valuable?
When you were working in the lab, was there a sense of innovation in there when you were working at Stanford or the other hospitals? Is there innovation in the products that are used, or is it mainly focused on the objective that it's doing?
So in the clinical labs, you're using a lot of innovative products and instrumentation, but there's no room for creativity. When you're having someone process your blood sample for results that your doctor is going to interpret for your diagnosis, you don't want any creativity there at all. It was a very different setting. So I learned all of the key science methods and concepts in the clinical lab and was able to carry a lot of that over to an innovative lab where we could make almost anything that we felt would add value, like at 3M.
That's awesome. As far as the tools that you can use now, if you were an artist that was either creating illustrations or paintings or different artwork, what are some tools that they can leverage if they're moving towards a technology career or they're looking to incorporate tech into their work? Are there any tools that are commonly used by artists in the creative space?
Absolutely. So for digital design, my favorite's Adobe Illustrator. It's just my favorite, but Adobe Creative Suite has a number of different platforms that you can use. There's also Sketch, Figma. A lot of companies like to use InDesign for, and that's also an Adobe platform, but let's see, Sketch. I'm trying to think of what other ones we could incorporate. Figma. Yeah, those are probably the ones that I would recommend, especially for collaborations. Even Adobe now offers a collaborative platform. So when I create a design, I can have my teammates log in, even if they're not designer, they can go in and kind of take notes. So that's really a great feature Adobe just implemented. So that's what I would recommend. Start with Adobe Creative Suite, go into Sketch, go into Figma.
Those are tools which I'm not familiar with, so I definitely will take a look at some of those to understand it a little bit more. And the technology space is definitely changing a lot. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the new version of ChatGPT, but something I've seen is different artists or different people are taking pictures of a sketch that they have on a piece of paper, uploading an image, and now creating a website. So things are definitely changing. Yet my perspective is that sometimes when we use too much technology on creativity, it tends to make us not think outside of the box, and it may limit our creativity. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. I think it's a lot of fun to see what kind of images ChatGPT can come up with, but am I going to hang it on my wall? I'm not so sure because I think we'll always appreciate human creativity. And I think what's going to become more popular is blockchain for artists. So kind of tagging all your digital artwork so that you can get the credit and kind of trace it through and make sure there's no ill use of your own creations. But yeah, I agree. I think that there's value there. And I think that it would easily be abused if given the opportunity.
Yeah. And blockchain definitely solves a lot of issues. And I'm looking at it from a perspective of, I'm interested to see where things are going to go in the future. Because when I went to a conference last year, it was a crypto conference, there was someone who was a prior, and they shared with me, crypto's booming and there's all these different technologies, but the people that are working in Washington, while they're alive and they're making the laws, they don't want to involve blockchain too much. So I think over time we will see different things. I look forward to it, but I definitely think it's not something that we should rush into. But for artists, I'm interested to see the platforms that they can leverage to expand their target audience. So I wanted to pivot into what it was like for you to create your own company by local artists, because I'm sure you learned a lot during that experience as far as operations or things to consider, which when you went to 3M, that was valuable and you were able to think from a bigger perspective. Any tips or advice that you want to share for someone who's maybe in the technology space or creative space and they're thinking, hey, I think I could create my own company, but they're kind of afraid to make the jump or they don't know who to reach out to for any feedback?
Absolutely. So I would recommend know what to outsource. For me, when I created Buy Local Artists, I didn't think to hire anybody to do anything. So I worked with an engineering team out of Finland for developing the site. It was a marketplace where payment transactions could take place on the site, shipping and so forth. So that was really the only thing outsourced. So I managed all the SEO. I managed the weekly newsletters, marketing, email campaigns. I wrote all of my own policies and so forth. I spoke to all of the users all the time. So I did all of that myself. And I think perhaps if I would have added some support, external support, I could have had it going. Like I said earlier, just ran out of resources, ran out of time. And if I would have invited others to help me, it would have lasted a lot longer. So I think by doing all those things, I learned a ton, but perhaps in the end, I could have hired someone for the support. Don't be afraid to seek out external support would be my recommendation.
Yeah. When you start building your own company, I think that's when you start understanding a little bit more about outsourcing and how to get additional help from different places. And that's something I've been reading about or listening to in other podcasts. A lot of founders, when they first get started, they outsource a lot of tasks and it helps them scale. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to transition to next is I want to talk about your patents. I know while many of us were going through remote work and getting used to that, you were out there creating a product which later got patents. Can you share with us, how do you know when you have something on your hands that is worth patenting and what that process looked like? When did you know, hey, what I have here is worth pursuing a patent?
Yeah, great question. So as an inventor or someone who constantly has new ideas, probably 5 a day, sometimes I land on these ideas and I think there's something there. Usually whenever I can't get it off my mind for like a day or two. And so when I came up with this idea, I was literally sitting on the sofa watching TV, and on the screen, there was a man and a son in a hotel room sitting on the sofa, and they picked up the remote control, and it was supposed to be very nice, like a sentimental moment for them and a very warm and fuzzy scene. I was enjoying it, and they were having a glass of wine, and they picked up the remote control in the hotel room, and I was appalled. I was so gross. It just took away all of the heartfelt, moments of the movie. I was just appalled, and I couldn't keep watching the movie. I was just thinking, that is so gross. And then I started thinking about different ways to make that not gross. And so I thought, how could we do that? And so I thought about it probably all night long. I just was going to bed thinking about how we could make that not gross. Like, someone really needs to do something about this. And I thought, well, why not be me? And so I started thinking of ideas on how I could change that, how I could fix this problem. And so immediately I just started going online and searching patents to see if anything already existed. And I didn't see anything that existed. And so I created it. I have a partner and he has just been wonderful in helping me explore some ideas, and he pops in and gives me great ideas and great guidance and support. So, when you have an idea, don't let it lie, especially if you can't get it off your mind. Seek it out, do some patent searches and see if you can find if it exists. And if it doesn't, and you have the idea, it's kind of your responsibility to make it.
Yeah, certainly. How long does it take from the time that you research and found, hey, there's no patent here? How long does it take to submit a patent, and what goes on in that process from the moment that you do that search?
Mhm. Well, it really varies. So for me and my partner, it didn't take that long because we had done it before. And I did all the illustrations for the product, for the patent. We did our own prior art search. He wrote out all the claims. We posted it on LegalZoom. So it was maybe a month that we filed. And so once you have the idea, you really need to do it quickly. And at that time, it was during the beginning of the pandemic. So anything infection control was going to be claimed pretty quickly. So as soon as you have the idea, do a patent search. And as much as you can do on your own, and the faster you can do it, the quicker everything will take place. And once you file, you'll have a provisional for 1 year. In that 1 year, you'll have the freedom to kind of make changes as necessary as you continue to develop the product. And then over the next year, it will become a published application. You don't actually get the patent for a few years later. So it does take a really long time. But if you can do a lot of the work yourself, if you have that knowledge and the bandwidth to do it, if you have never done a patent before or filed for a patent, definitely seek help and guidance from an attorney. I don't know how long that would take, but if you have a patent attorney that can help you with patent searches, they will help you with the artwork and the application and everything. I'm not sure how long that process takes because I've only done it this way. And then with 3M patent attorneys too. So it takes a while, but yeah, as soon as you have an idea about something, start looking to see if it already exists.
And as far as the artwork that you need to submit for a patent, is it something complex, or is it
No,
a simple sketch?
simple sketch. Yeah. Simple sketch, and it needs to be clearly labeled. It's just a 2D. They don't take computer generated sketches. So no vector art at all, just by hand. And so you'll have to clearly label it. We would kind of laugh about this at 3M because do you put the cart before the horse? So don't go online and start looking at patents and things and then get ideas. So let your ideas be completely novel. And then once you have an idea, then go look at the patents and search it out.
Yeah, because certainly when you're looking at patents, if you have an idea and you haven't quite gotten to the final version, you'll easily get maybe disencouraged. Like, oh, my idea is probably pretty been thought about. But no, I definitely agree. That's great advice.
Hmm. Yeah, you don't want to be swayed to start creating things like things that already exist. If you have a blank canvas and no other external influences, you can just create something truly unique.
Yeah, that was interesting that they don't accept computer generated. I'm sure that's for a reason, but that makes sense because now with all the different design tools that you can use out there, like Canva, and you can quickly create a logo. I think that's an important thing that you mentioned. They shouldn't be computer generated. So I really want to ask you a question regarding what advice do you have for people that want to pursue these type of jobs when they're an artist and then they're looking at the job market? Because my thinking is a lot of these jobs are very limiting for a person who's
Yeah.
creative. Like they're only focused on one component. Is there specific jobs that you can get started into initially and then grow into a larger role? Or what do you think artists could pursue?
You can be creative in almost every role. You can be creative in creating processes and outlining new ways of doing things. If you're given the freedom, if the culture exists to allow you that, a lot of roles can, non-traditionally creative roles can allow you to be somewhat creative. Now, if you're looking to get into a creative role, like a product designer role or product development role, usually the product development does require a level of science or engineering background. If you want to get into more of a designer role, don't wait until you get into the role to start doing it. So if you have an idea or you want to design something, you want to make something, you can start without being accepted into the role and mold and create your skills before you're even in front of the hiring manager. You're going to have more to talk about, right? And you're going to have better leverage. So I would say pursue your interest. The sky isn't the limit. If you have an idea and you have a problem to solve, start trying to solve it and see where it takes you.
Yeah, certainly. And are there conferences or networks for these creative groups?
Absolutely. A few on the top of my head are more industrial design focused. And so that will require some education in design to get into industrial design, or maybe not, if you just start creating things on your own. Industrial Designers Society of America. If you go on LinkedIn and you just look up design societies. So if you want art or design, oddly enough, it is kind of segregated. I would just recommend whatever your skill set is. If you're going more towards design and art direction, I would say do a LinkedIn search because there are so many organizations. Or if you're going into more physical design, you can look up design engineering platforms.
And could you tell us about the awards that you got at 3M? Because I know you got several awards for technical excellence and innovation. Could you share with us one of the projects that you were working on during that time? Because I just find that fascinating that you were able to repeatedly work and produce amazing results at 3M.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. I was working with the wireless communications group. They're developing conceal film for wireless infrastructure. So a lot of providers are having a hard time with installing wireless infrastructure in neighborhoods and on the sides of buildings, on top of buildings, and because it's just really unsightly. It's not aesthetically pleasing. And so what we were doing is developing a mirror film, a conceal film that you would laminate to the wireless infrastructure to make it appear invisible. And I can't take ownership of developing the actual film. That was taking place before I joined the team. Where I was able to kind of stand out a little bit in my design is the application, applying it to the wireless infrastructure. And then also I started designing shroud techniques to completely envelope wireless infrastructure. So I did a number of studies with RF engineers and customers, ethnography studies, and just learning what the pain points are and how we could apply this. So that's one of the projects I was working on. And other projects for the wireless group, I designed a kit so that engineers could repair fiber optic cable at the top of the towers instead of replacing the entire cable. So I designed a portable workstation that they could essentially strap to themselves and repair the cable. So you have to give consideration to the wind load and dust and dirt and so forth, because birds will go up there and squirrels on the cable or hurricanes. Ultimately, if you were able to repair the cable wherever it was cleaved, then you could save these providers millions of dollars per year. So that's another fun thing that we did. Again, I was just given freedom to explore solutions that I would find helpful. They said, here's the tools and here's the problem. Let's co-create.
Yeah, and all these projects that you've been part of to co-create, they're completely different. There's not one particular track. So it's about fitting the right tool and co-creating. For the wireless projects, were these companies that were using it, or was it within 3M?
Key accounts, key customers. Yeah. For the conceal film, we were doing field trials in the EU and the US, and it became very popular. Right as I was leaving 3M is whenever I was designing the shroud to fully encompass the wireless infrastructure. So that would consist of maybe 4, 8, 12 antennas, and including the poles and the nuts and the bolts and just completely enveloping. So that's where my studies ended.
Awesome. And I have a question regarding creativity. I have heard of a lot about groupthink in an organization, like in a particular group, when everybody just takes the same idea and that kind of halts creativity. What are ways that we can prevent organizations from having groupthink for a team that is focused on product development from still being able to take ideas from different areas and continue to innovate?
Just stay open to what the solution could be. Hear others out. If they have ideas, bring them to the table and don't immediately dismiss them if they're not like your own, and explore that and brainstorming sessions. I think staying humble and just staying open to where the ideas could come from. If they're bottom up or top down, left, right, whatever it is, if it's a great idea or if there's any potential in there, let's explore it a bit until we've exhausted it and then we can move on. But you never know where the great ideas are going to come from.
Thank you for that answer, Lawren. And are there any trends that you're seeing right now in the technology or creative space that are taking the world by storm and that are really could impact positively the creative space?
Absolutely. So in digital design with AI, I anticipate it being pretty disruptive to our normal processes, including design. So I would anticipate that it's going to take a different creative mindset to design interfaces with AI. And it's something that I'm extremely interested in. I've been kind of doing a lot of my own self-study, designed this enterprise software platform for one of my groups. And that's what I predict. I predict that things are going to change and the way that different design methodologies and different ways that we approach our interfaces.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, that's a area where leaders are either talking positively about AI on where we're going to go, either they're completely brushing it off or not giving it any thought. But I think this is important for all our different industries, even for my space, cybersecurity. The key aspect is ethics and then not leaking company information, because there's a lot of different rules that I'm seeing on the internet now. Now companies are saying, if you want to use this tool, you have to get the right approval, because in some instances, employees are accidentally leaking proprietary information, and that could either be related to a patent or it could be related to something that gives them a competitive advantage. So it's very important to look at the privacy and understand where that data is going. And something that I saw, Lawren, which would be interesting in the creative space in the future. Right now, we're using ChatGPT that's hosted by OpenAI. In the future, they want to use these models in a way that the company or individuals can host their own instance without that data going back to that company or without it being stored at a vendor when they could host it themselves. So that might be interesting in the future to be able to harness creativity in a way that that data is not going to be available to everyone else, or it's something keep before going to create a patent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even right now, one of my main action items is I need to start looking into trademarking and existing patents for the product that we're developing. Even now, I'm timid to go online and start searching for this patent, existing patent information. How do I know that that information isn't going to be leaked? But we have to do it. So it's a risk.
Yeah, I totally agree. Lawren, it has been an amazing pleasure having you on the podcast. I would definitely love to have you on in maybe 6 months or a year just to see where you are and to continue to stay in touch. If someone's listening, what's the best way that they could reach out to you?
Yep. I can be found on LinkedIn. My first name, Lawren, Lawren Epstein, Epstein. Find me, connect. I would love to hear your stories and your experiences. And if you have any questions, I can give you some advice that I've learned, courses that I've taken that I found helpful, any kind of professional organizations. If you need any introductions, just let me know.
Awesome. That sounds good. And I will tell you, Lawren is not afraid of co-creating and collaborating. I reached out to her last minute one day and we worked on a project which was featured on the Cybersecurity Hub, and it was featured on LinkedIn. They have 1.5 million followers. And I was like, Lawren, I know you're not in the cybersecurity space, but I would like to collaborate with you. And she was like, yes, let's do it. So if there's any listeners who enjoy what she's shared with us today and they want to reach out and get her ideas on anything, feel free to reach out to her and she'll get back to you whenever she has time.
Absolutely.
So it's been amazing hosting you today. Lawren, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian. It's been a lot of fun.